Well, Harris is expected to interview the finalists this weekend, and then she's going to hit the road next week with her running mate, visiting 7 battleground states in just 5 days, starting with Pennsylvania. And that brings us to one of the top contenders for Harris's VP pick, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, who today came out swinging against the Trump ticket.
J.D. Vance is a total phony baloney. He is the most inorganic candidate I think I have ever seen on the national stage. He doesn't know what he believes. Donald Trump really has buyer's remorse with his pick.
Well, clearly Shapiro not holding back there, as Trump is already taking him on.
If she picks Shapiro, she's going to lose the Palestinian vote.
MJ Lee is out front live right outside the White House. And MJ, you're learning some new details about the VP search and what President Biden thinks about the top VP contenders.
That's right, Pam. As of tonight, we are told that the Harris campaign actually doesn't have a set time or even day yet on when exactly they're going to unveil Vice President Harris's eventual running mate pick as she heads into this pivotal weekend where she is going to be interviewing her top contenders and making that decision by the deadline of Tuesday, because that is when she will have that first joint campaign event with her future running mate. But one person who has clearly been in the vice president's ear is President Biden, though, as you showed there, he was coy when reporters asked him, well, how have those discussions gone? But what we do know is what the president actually thinks about some of these top contenders that we have been reporting on. We do know that one well-known favorite for President Biden, according to advisors, is Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. As one senior advisor put it to me bluntly, the president is a big fan of Shapiro's. And given also, Pam, just that the president clearly sees Pennsylvania as being one of the most important battleground states heading into November, just as it was in 2020. For some advisors here at the White House, it's really impossible to imagine the president really privately rooting for anybody but Shapiro. That is anyone other than perhaps Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. And the most obvious reason, as this advisor that I spoke with described to me, is simply because he is just a blast. And I want to use an event from back in January to illustrate this point and illustrate why he is seen that way inside the White House among some advisors. The president was in Wisconsin for an infrastructure event, and Walz happened to be one of the Democratic elected officials that joined the president on this day. The president spoke at a brewery, and then the group all migrated next door to a tap room where beers were flowing. And this advisor recalled that Walz was just having a great time. And they said that that energy ended up being so infectious, and that the president was in the best mood ever, so much so that advisors joked at the time, should the governor be around the president more so that he can be in a good mood all the time, as he seems to be whenever he spends time with him. So again, we don't know what private discussions have taken place about this VP pick between the president and the vice president. But again, we do know that there are some personal favorites for President Biden.
All right, MJ Lee, excellent reporting. Thank you so much. Out front now, Republican strategist Shermichael Singleton, Karen Finney, former senior spokesperson for Hillary Clinton's campaigns, and Hans Nichols, political reporter for Axios. Hans, let's start with you, because you have some new reporting that all of the signs and the tea leaves are pointing to Harris picking Josh Shapiro for VP. What is the latest on what your sources are telling you?
Well, there is a logic and there's math involved in the idea that it's going to be Josh Shapiro. And that is that you need those 19 electoral college votes from Pennsylvania, and you need someone who can deliver them. And Josh Shapiro is sitting on a 61% approval rating. And so that's why there seems to be this great groundswell of support for Josh Shapiro, because they're saying he's the obvious choice. Now, here are the caveats. And Pam, you know this as well as anyone. Anyone that actually knows the decision that's been made here is not necessarily talking to reporters. And the very fact that the president the vice president has not spoken with many of the candidates tells you that we're just in the middle of this process. So yes, logic would imply that it's going to be Shapiro, but chemistry might matter more than qualifications. And that's why these interviews are so important for potential would-be vice presidents.
Right. I mean, you can have all this data on paper, all the vetting done, and then you interview, right, Karen Finney? I know that you've been in that process, right? And an interview can change everything. How important is that chemistry and just that intuition that Harris might have when she meets with her candidates?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm reminded, 4 years ago, I was with a small group of people who, via Zoom, were making the case to then Vice President Biden and his team for Kamala Harris to be his vice president. Look, there are the considerations like Hans was talking about in terms of you might look at, can they help deliver certain states or certain demographics? But at the same time, that chemistry is the most important thing. Actually, there's two things. The chemistry and the belief that is that person going to be a good governing partner with me and with my style of leadership. The second most important thing, as we know, is God forbid something should happen, making sure that you believe that person would be ready to lead the country. And so those are two of the, biggest parts of this decision. All the paper's been gone through, all the data, all of that. At the end of the day, it really does come down to your gut and to the feeling that you have if someone is going to be the right governing partner.
Before I get to you, Michael, and I promise I will, I want to just go back to this point about, VP picks and whether they have the home state advantage. There have been 5 times since 1980 that a major party VP pick has failed to win their home state, Paul Ryan from Wisconsin being the most recent in 2012. So you do have to wonder when you look at that, Hans, about, whether is there too much importance being put on Pennsylvania here and Shapiro's ability to bring that home?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that's like the stat that you just put up are powerful points. And I'm sure that, I don't know if Tim Waltz bribed a producer to put that up. No, look, those are all states
I can assure you that didn't happen. This was my idea.
We're joking. It's your idea. It was a brilliant idea. I meant to say that was a brilliant point, Pam. My mistake.
Thank you. I want some credit here,
look,
Hans.
This is the conversation. This is the conversations everyone's having. Is like, does it really matter? And, I suspect that to Karen's broader point, it's about governing. It's about finding a partner. It's not just about the next 90 days. Of course, if you want to get to the governing and you want to get to the partnership part, you got to win the next 90 days. So it may be in everyone's favor to be a little nearsighted right now. But this is sort of when you look at the arc of Kamala Harris's career, what was she? She was an attorney general who were 2 people on her list, former states attorney generals, right, at the state level. And then as vice president, she served as a partner with President Biden, a same position that Biden was in under Barack Obama. And so she has a pretty good theory of the case of the kind of person that she wants supporting her should she win more than 270 electoral college votes. And with that sort of tough math question, I'll toss it back to you guys, because this is really, though, for the next 90, 95 days, it's about the math. And we all know reporters are very bad at math.
Yes, I, for one, I can speak for myself, horrible at math. Now I'm going to kick it to you, Michael, on that note, because there's a lot more focus on Shapiro right now. And now Donald Trump and his running mate, J.D. Vance, are singling out Shapiro. Let me play what Vance said today and how Shapiro responded.
There's a lot of talk is going to be this guy, Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania, who, I've seen a couple clips of him talking. He talks like Barack Obama. It's like if I did try to do a really bad impression of Barack Obama, that's what it would sound like, is this guy, Josh Shapiro.
Barack Obama was probably our most gifted orator of my time, so it's kind of a weird insult, I guess. But look, I'll say this about J.D. Vance. It is real hard being honest with the American people when you're not being honest with yourself. J.D. Vance is a total phony baloney.
What's your reaction? Does it seem to you, Michael, that the Vance Trump ticket are a little bit worried about a Shapiro?
I mean, look,
say Trump
it's like
Vance.
if you're a boxer going in. Yeah, it's like if you're a boxer going into the match, you're not necessarily worried. You prepare for these things and you hope that mentally that you're ready to go, the long route here. But I would say, JD's point of Governor Shapiro not being Barack Obama, who is an incredible orator, an intelligent man, one of the best presidents I think many Americans would agree with. Certainly I'm on the conservative side of things, but he was somewhat of a moderate Democrat. I think history will prove that to be true. Josh Shapiro is not Barack Obama. He's not, the real McCoy, as they say, to use that phrase. But look, Pamela, I'm looking at this differently as a strategist here. here, right? The Philadelphia Inquirer resurfaced some old remarks from Governor Shapiro where he stated Palestinians cannot coexist peacefully. Younger progressives are warning against choosing Shapiro. That will absolutely become a problem for the Harris campaign in states like Michigan, where they're going to need about 60% of the Muslim population in order to carry that state. So they have to be very careful here if they're going to try to maintain that 2020 Biden coalition going forward into November. And it's clear that progressives want someone else because of the issues going on between Israel and Hamas and Gaza.